Yes, thousands of people live on the slopes of volcanoes, in the track of avalanches, and on land thrown up only yesterday by earthquakes. But with a millionairess who can rise to her destiny and wield the power her money gives her, no. Well, be it so. I shall live in my lonely little house and be myself until I find a man good enough to be to me what Alistair is to seedy stockings.
Well, I hope you don't have to wait too long, dear.
I never wait. I march on, and when I come upon anything I want, I grab it. I grabbed you, Alistair. I find he does not suit me. He beats me.
Only in self-defense. I never laid a finger on you except in self-defense.
Yes, you are like all the great European powers. You only fight in self-defense. You do not suit. I throw you to greedy, seedy stockings. You can punch her about to your heart's content. Mr. Sagamore arranged the divorce, cruelty and adultery.
Oh, but I don't like this. It's not fair to Alistair. Why should he be divorced instead of you?
Mr. Sagamore, take an action against Miss Patricia Smith for alienating my husband's affections. Damages £20,000.
Oh, Mr. Sagamore, is such a thing possible?
I'm afraid it is, Miss Smith, quite possible.
Well, my dear old father used to say that in the law courts there was only one way to beat the people who had unlimited money, and that's to have no money at all. Can't get 20,000 out of me.
Damn your old father.
That's one for you, Effie.
I'm afraid the laugh is with old Mr. Smith, Mrs. Fitzfassenden. Because where there is nothing, the king loses his rights.
Oh, I can bear no more of this. I shall live in utter loneliness until I find the right man, the mate created for me in heaven. He must be somewhere.
The manager says I'm wanted here. Who wants me?
I want you. Come here.
Something wrong with your blood pressure, eh? Oh. I have never felt such a pulse. It is like a slow sledgehammer.
Is my pulse my fault?
No, it is the will of Allah. All our pulses are part of the will of Allah.
Now, look here. You know, Doc, that won't go down in this country. We don't believe in Allah.
That does not disconcert Allah in the least, my friend. The pulse beats still. Slow, strong. You are a terrible woman, but I love your pulse. I have never felt anything like it before.
Oh, fancy that. He loves her pulse.
I am a doctor. Women as you fancy them are nothing to me but bundles of ailments. But the life, the pulse, is the heartbeat of Allah, save in whom there is no majesty and no might.
My pulse will never change. This is the love I crave for. I will marry you. Mr. Sagamore, take out a special license the moment you've got rid of Alistair.
It is not possible. We are bound by our vows.
Well, have I not passed your mother's test? I came to this hotel a scullery maid. I'm now its owner.
But what of the old people whose natural home this place had become? The old man, the old woman. Was not this preying on the poverty of the poor? Shall I, a servant of Allah, live on such gains?
I have to take the world as I find it.
The wrath of Allah shall overtake those who leave this world no better than they found it.
I think Allah loves those who make money.
All the evidence is that way, certainly.
I do not see it so. I see that riches are a curse. Poverty is a curse. And only in the service of Allah is there righteousness, justice, and happiness. But all this talk is idle. This lady has easily fulfilled the conditions imposed by my mother, but I have not fulfilled the conditions imposed by the lady's father.
You need not trouble. I can show you how to turn 150 into 50,000.
You cannot. It is gone.
You cannot have spent it all. You who live like a mouse. There must be some of it left.
Not a penny. Not a piastra. Allah...
Oh, bother Allah. What did you do with it?
Allah is never bothered. On that afternoon, when you left me to earn your own living, I called upon the merciful, the compassionate, to reveal to me whether you were not one of the strokes of his infinite humor. Then I sat down and took up a newspaper, and behold, a paragraph headed Wills and Bequests. I read a name that I cannot remember, a Mrs. Somebody of Clapham Park, £122,000. She had never done anything but live in Clapham Park, and she left £122,000. But what was the second name? It was that of the teacher who changed my whole life and gave me a new soul by opening the world of science to me. I was his assistant for 4 years. He used to make his own apparatus for his experiments. And then one day, he needed a filament of metal that would resist a temperature that would melt platinum like sealing wax.
Buy the patent, if it hasn't been snapped up already.
He never took out a patent. He believed that knowledge is no man's property, and he had neither time nor money to spend in patent offices. Millions have been made out of that discovery of his by people who care nothing about science and everything about money. He left £400 and a widow. That good woman who had been a second mother to me, a shilling a day for her at most, not even 1 piastra an hour.
That comes of marrying an incompetent dreamer.
The merciful, the compassionate heard the widow's prayer. Listen. I once cured a prime minister when he imagined himself to be ill. I went to him and told him that it was the will of Allah that the widow should receive a civil pension. She received it, £100. I went to the great metallurgical trust which exploits his discovery and told them that her poverty was a scandal in the face of Allah. They were rich and generous. They made a special issue of founders' shares worth £300 a year to her. But all this took time. The illness, the nurse, the funeral, the disposal of the laboratory, the change to a cheaper lodging had left her without a penny. Between the death and the pensions, there was a gap exactly £150 wide. He who is just and exact supplied that sum through your chauffeur's hands and through mine. It rejoiced my heart as money has never rejoiced it before. But instead of coming to you with £50,000, I am in arrears with my bill for my bread in your hotel, and I'm expecting every day to be told by your manager that this cannot go on. I must settle.
Well, you didn't do very well for yourself, but you did very well for the widow, and to escape Epi. I mean, she won't marry you with empty pockets.
Pray, why? 50,000 must have been made 10 times over in that discovery. And the doctor, in putting my £150 in the widow's necessary expenses, may be said to have made a retrospective investment in that discovery and has shown the greatest stability in the affair, has he not, Mr. Sagamore?
Unquestionably. He settled the widow's affairs to perfection.
But I'm in debt for my food.
Well, if it comes to that, I am in debt for my food. I got a letter this morning from my purveyors saying that I have paid them nothing for 2 years, and that if I do not send them something on account, they will be obliged to resort to the premises.
What does that mean?
Sell my furniture.
You cannot sell mine, I'm afraid. I have hardly any.
If you have a stick, she will sell it. She is the meanest woman in England.
That is why I am also the richest. Mr. Sagamore, my mind is made up. I will marry this doctor, ascertain his name, and make the necessary arrangements.
You take care, Doctor. She is unfaithful to her husband in wanting to marry you. She flirted with me, took me down the river and made me believe I was to be Alistair's successor long before ever she saw you. See what she's done to me. She will do the same to you when the next man takes her fancy.
What have you to say to that?